Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this live update about IsraAID's response to the crisis in Ukraine. My name is James Cohen. I am IsraAID US's Chief Development Officer, and I'm thrilled to welcome you today. We're thrilled to welcome you to hear so much about our work in Ukraine and the surrounding areas. As you know, we've been responding to this crisis since the very beginning, starting in Moldova and Romania, and now in Ukraine itself. Our mission is to support vulnerable people affected by the crisis, and we're doing everything we can across the region. Because of you, we have reached unprecedented levels of support, and we wanted to take this opportunity to show you where your generosity has had incredible impact and update you on what you are making possible. Today, we're going to hear from Yotam Polizer, Global CEO of IsraAID, and Michal Bar, Director of Emergency Programming and Operations, who will share with you what's going on and what we see happening in the near future. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and hopefully we'll all learn something this morning. So I'm now going to take this opportunity to give a very special welcome to members of the US board, to members of the US Advisory Council, to members of the local leadership councils of Los Angeles, New York, Florida, San Francisco Bay Area, and our Interfaith and Religious Council. We're so glad you could join us today. Our first speaker today is Yotam Polizer, Global CEO of IsraAID. Yotam has been involved in IsraAID for many, many years. Following the September 2015 refugee crisis in Europe, he led IsraAID's humanitarian mission in Lesbos, Greece. He has been at IsraAID for 9 years, built and led programs in Japan, in Philippines, in Sierra Leone, Nepal, and many other places. Yotam, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, James, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone from wherever you are in the world. We're thrilled to have you with us. And thank you for joining. And what we're seeing in Ukraine is unfortunately not new to us. We see that on one hand, on the ground, our teams are seeing much growing humanitarian needs and challenges. And on the other hand, globally, we see the attention is shifting away from Ukraine. And that's exactly the time for IsraAID to step in and get involved in a much deeper way, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we've been working on this crisis since day 2, starting in Moldova and Romania, the neighboring countries, providing support, focusing on mothers and children and the most vulnerable. And in the last few weeks, we extended and expanded our operations into Ukraine. I, together with our emergency response team, visited Ukraine just a few weeks ago. We went to Odessa, Kiev, and Bucha. Bucha, for those of you who don't remember, was one of the worst affected areas. It's a town not far from Kiev that really suffered one of the worst massacres in the beginning of the war. I'm not going to speak much about it because you're going to hear from Michal, our global head of emergency, who is leading this operation and leading the incredible team on the ground. But I will say that your support and your engagement is needed now more than ever. We are planning a 5 years operation right now. And even though we don't hear about it in the news, the needs on the ground have never been more urgent than now. Thank you, and I pass it back to James.
Thank you, Yotam. Our next speaker is Michal Bar. Michal is the Director of Emergency Programming and Operations. Michal has over 15 years experience working in the public sector, including the IDF, the State Attorney's Office, Knesset, and many civil society organizations. Over the past 2 years, Michal has been leading the Emergency Programming and Operations Department at IsraAID, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Tom, for the introduction. I'm happy to share with all of you the work me and my teams are doing since February 24th, since the invasion to Ukraine has started. And yeah, so we can start. So we wanted to share with you the map so you could get a sense of where we are and what we have done so far. As we shared, it all began on February 24th with the Russian invasion to Ukraine. And on that day, we were already preparing the ground for our teams to arrive to Moldova, where the Israel team was standing at the border where it's circled, in the crossing point from Odessa to Moldova, where we were accepting women and children that were fleeing from Ukraine. Since the beginning of the crisis until now, over 560,000 women and children crossed through Moldova, and about 100,000 of them stayed in Moldova. Because of the conditions and the martial law in Ukraine, we can see here the breakdown of the family unit, and that the majority of the refugees coming out of Ukraine are women and children. And this is what we were facing, accepting the refugees within Moldova and accompanying them from the border point to Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. Today, 5 months later, we have five community centers that we are running together with local partners. Those centers are daycares, providing psychosocial support to mothers and children, some recreation activities, and building resilience for women and children within in their way, trying to integrate within the Moldovan society. From Moldova, we also sent an initial team to Tulcea, Romania. This is part of our major principle of work. As part of the operation, we are following the people. And when we saw people moving from Moldova elsewhere, we were accompanying them and arriving in Tulcea. Tulcea, it's a small city situated on the delta between the Black Sea and the Danube River. And that unique position allowed us to develop a logistic hub that through the river, we were able to ship in vital aid, medical supplies, medications, and food to the southeast corridor and the affected areas within Ukraine. We were working with local partners and network of communities that we developed through our work, and that, thank you, that allowed us to ship in and to make sure that the aid is coming into the most needed areas. While in Moldova, we were focusing more on women and children and their specific needs. In Tulcea, Romania, we were able to develop this logistic hub that allows us to take in donations and to procure the needed and the vital items that the communities in Ukraine were asking for. So far, we were able to ship over 600 trucks full of food and medications, and in the worth of over $25 million. So through this unique opportunity, that we developed together with the local partners in Tulcha and Odessa, we were able to reach out to places that were so far unreachable and that got very limited support, like Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia, Dnipro, and Kharkiv. Through that, we were also able to build this incredible friendship and to build trust with the local communities that invited us to come in and observe with our own eyes and to learn what are the needs and to adapt our programs. And this is where in the last month, Yotam, myself, and the emergency and operation teams arrived into Odessa and Kiev and started planning the new chapter in the Ukraine response. So we understand that the needs are changing constantly and people are moving, and we wanted to be there to continue and support also in the places that we were most needed. So currently we have 2 major locations where we are developing the programs for the next stage. The programs in Kiev are connected with the initiative of the First Lady of Ukraine, who came up with the national strategic plan to reduce trauma and to enhance psychosocial support. And this is the flagship of IsraAID. We are planning together with the Ministry of the First Lady to support the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Social Protection with programs that aim to enhance the capacities of the Ukrainian authorities to support their population, people, hospitals with trauma care and psychosocial support and psychosocial first aid. In Odessa, we have 4 programs that are also related to psychosocial support. And the idea is that we are working with the first responders to allow them to maintain minimum level of services. We understand that in order for them to continue serving their communities, we need to be there for them and to constantly enhance their capacities and allow them that oxygen, not only with the vital aid and the items, but also with the trainings and the know-how to keep on doing the work. Another thing that we realized that we want to extend and to have another branch of that logistic hub we started in Tulcha, Romania, and to extend it with another hub in Odessa in order to support local economy and infuse it by procuring locally. The last program that we already started and we are very proud of is the program of the providing safe water, potable water to Mykolaiv. Mykolaiv, it's the city you can see in the southern side of the map next to Odessa. And the water supply to Mykolaiv was cut off after the invasion, the Russian invasion to Kherson, where the water facilities were maintained and located. And the city was left without drinking water. IsraAID was working with the municipality to locate groundwater and to drill them and to provide the municipality with 4 reverse osmosis machines. Those arrived last Thursday, and it was a very moving moment for all of us to see the expressions of the people who got to that point where we can install the systems and provide with drinking water to the rest of the city. We are committed to continue and support the municipality of Mykolaiv and the Oblast of Odessa and the authorities in Kiev in order to provide the communities with drinking water, with the vital aid, the medical supplies, and the psychosocial support. We would be happy to take any questions you've got and to share more stories from the work we are doing on the ground.
Wow, Michal, thank you so much. That is incredibly impressive. And I know that on behalf of everyone here who's participating today, we have a big thank you to you and your team for this just incredible work that you're doing. We do want to open it up for questions. If you look on your screen, there is a Q&A button where you can feel free to ask questions, and then we will get them answered for you. I'm going to start one off. We have one that just came in. It says, Michal, you've headed up IsraAID's emergency response team for many years now. How is the Ukraine crisis different, and how is it similar to responding to other emergencies?
Thank you, James. It's a very good question. We're still learning the situation as it unfolds every day. And after over 5 months, we are responding to this crisis. We understand that this is a pivotal crisis in terms of its scale. The Ukraine crisis is a record breaker in terms of the amount of IDPs, interdisplaced people and refugees that came out of Ukraine. And it's the highest number of refugees since the Second World War. This is unprecedented, like huge number. So from that aspect, we need to enhance collaboration, work in multiple countries, and have strong mechanisms in order to extend our support within Ukraine. So definitely the scale is different. Our ability to develop and extend logistics support in such huge geographic distances, it's also a point for us that we are developing the experts and yeah, I think maybe another question.
Thank you. Yeah, the questions are just coming right in, so thank you. We have someone who is asking, can you talk some more about the relationships IsraAID has built with the Ukrainian communities? How do you do that, and how does it help you?
So our mission is to support vulnerable people affected by crisis, and we are doing everything we can to do that across the region. The work that we are doing in general is based on building trust with the local communities. After all, they're there to stay, they understand better the political context, and they understand their needs and wants better than we do. Therefore, we have to work through the local communities, and we see it as an objective and a milestone in our way of designing programs and developing our programs onwards. So in order to extend our work and for it to be sustainable for the longer term and to support the recovery and rehabilitation of the people of Ukraine, we must work through the local communities. We see it as a great opportunity for us to be engaged with the local communities, but also I'm very moved by it, to be honest. And also meeting the Jewish community in Odessa and to see the involvement of the local communities and the spirit of volunteerism that we were encountering in the past few months, that was overwhelming and an experience to remember.
So this question is a little bit similar, but a little more detailed. Do you hire local Ukrainian staff members, and how does that work?
Indeed. Specifically in the Ukraine response, we have an interesting challenge with the language. Former USSR country where almost everybody speaks Russian, are now speaking only Ukrainian due to natural reasons and personal preferences. And therefore, we are adapting our programs as we do always. We are tailoring the programs and our responses to the local needs. And part of the localization of our programs depend also on the language and the context of the locality. It's one of the many reasons why we are hiring national teams. And in order to do that immersion between the national team that we are hiring and IsraAID, we are sending HQ and our teams and the Moldovan team to work together with the Ukrainian team and share with them the know-how, the body of knowledge that we are bringing from IsraAID. Yeah. I do want to say as well that as we speak, we have a setup team from HQ who is now in Odessa and spending their nights in the bomb shelter and spending their days working with the national teams to set up the operations and the offices and to align all of our procedures to allow us to continue and develop our work and scale up in that region.
That's great. So someone asks, what are the key resources and skills that IsraAID needs for the next phase of work in Ukraine? And before I turn it over to you, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that we need your continued support in order to be able to do this. So we need the support of everyone who's on this webinar today. We're very grateful for your past support, and we do need your continued support. And now I'll turn it over to you to Veronica.
I would like to second you, James, and say that we are in the same support for the last 5 months, and yet this is a new chapter. Working within Ukraine, it's a new scale with new complexities that we are addressing with the fabulous teams that are working nights and days in Kiev, Odessa, and Mykolaiv. And what we need is, except from your support, we need more resources. We need more in-kind donations. We need more Ukrainian-speaking teams, people to join our team. So here is an open call to whoever knows excellent professionals who want to join us and to be trained by us. Yes, that's in general the support we need.
Michal, thank you so much for taking the time out of your really busy day and actually your night. So thank you for joining us late at night there to answer these questions and to spend time with us. We're all very grateful. And again, thank you for the incredibly important work that you're doing. Before we close, I do want to turn this over to one last person, to our incredible board chair, Sherry Weinman, who is the chair of the US board. Sherry has been a volunteer leader in the US Jewish community for a very long time. Was an executive producer, creator, television, news, and information programs in Los Angeles, and helped launch the US office of IsraAID in Palo Alto. And we're just so grateful for everything that she does. Sherry, will you close us out?
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. I particularly want to thank Yotam for not only for being here today, but for the vision with which he's led IsraAID, not only to respond to Odessa, but to respond and stay, not in Odessa, in Ukraine, to respond and stay in and with the people of Ukraine from the various locations that you've now just heard about briefly. And of course, to thank Michal, who our Director of Emergency Operations, who is maybe tireless and fearless in her devotion to this cause. You're very, very inspiring, Michal, always to us. And just a reminder to everyone, our teams are working in harm's way. Well, you could say in many ways that we're always working in some sense in harm's way in times of crisis, but this one is extremely vivid. And you heard Michal say, you know, working with people in the bomb shelters. Well, when you're in a bomb shelter, there's a reason you're in a bomb shelter. It's because there are bombs that could fall. And we are just so grateful that there's anything that we can do to assist from our much easier locales all around America and elsewhere around the world. I think everyone here knows that IsraAID not only is in Ukraine now, but is currently in 16 countries around the world responding with our teams and with our very unique services to people in their worst times of crisis. And so I want to thank everyone who's here for their continued support. We can't do that. We can't do any of this without your support. And I want to remind you of some ways that you can be involved and continue to make a difference yourself. So one of those is to go to IsraAID.org and familiarize yourself with the website, and so that when a friend asks you after you tell some of this story to them, how can I give? You can say, oh, you go to the IsraAID site and there's a button that you push to donate, etc. So familiarize yourself with the site and you'll learn a tremendous amount at the same time. It's a beautiful, beautiful website. Email to James, and James led us off today. He's our head of development in the United States. And he's new with us, and he is just a fantastic resource for us. And we're very excited to have James on board. You can visit us on Facebook. You can share those postings with friends. You can sign up for our newsletter. And we urge you to do that so you can really learn firsthand and quickly what the new developments are. And I want to also ask you to think about if anybody has contacts in the media, wherever you live around the world. Those contacts are very important to us. We'd love to know the people that you know in the media and continue to get the word out about IsraAID. We'd like you to think about your friends who are like-minded and care about humanitarian work and care about the fact that this is an Israeli organization doing this work, and to introduce us to your friends who may have family foundations and other connections. And last, of course, is to, we all need to reach into our own pockets. I know everyone here already has, and I thank you sincerely for that support. So those are some of my ideas. I'm always happy to discuss your ideas if you have them, and James is too. His email is jcohen@israaid.org, J, just the letter J, Cohen, C-O-H-E-N, @israaid.org. And thank you everyone for being here today.